So in this video, we're going to be doing a beginner's tutorial on washes. To start with, you're going to need a paintbrush, and this is a size 6, the silver black velvet, but you can use any soft bristled paintbrush. I'm going to use some washi tape. I've got some ultramarine blue here on my ceramic plate. Use whatever paint you have for watercolor. I'm not going to go into the specific brands of this. You can check out my paint videos if you're interested in my paint reviews. Then I have my glass of water with just like a little rubber disc in there that helps to wipe off your brush and clean it off better. Use whatever tools you have for this. This is also a great tutorial for refreshers, so if you're a beginner or you've been doing it a while, either way is fine. I'm glad to have you here. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of washi tape, and I'm going to make 4 separate squares because we are going to learn 2 types of washes, the flat wash and the gradient wash. And we're going to learn 2 ways to do those washes, which would include wet in wet. And I'm not being precise. This is just to practice. And well, before I lose track of what I was saying, we're going to do a wet and wet and a dry, wet on dry, for each flat wash and gradient. Doesn't matter what color paint you use. I'm using blue because I have some left over in my palette. Let's go ahead and do the end too. I'm working in my Pentalic Aquarelle journal. So you don't even have to tape it. I'm just doing it because I want some clean edges. If I was to say that was the only downfall about this journal, is it doesn't really take to tape very well. But for this, we're going to go with the tape. Alright, so first we're going to do, and I'm just going to do a flat wash. And we're going to go wet on dry first. Then we're going to do flat, wet in wet, or wet on wet. Alright, and this is going to be the gradient. I'm just going to abbreviate grade. We all know. And then same thing here. We're going to start with the wet on dry. And the wet on wet. Okay. So here we go. And just like you're going to get some water on your paintbrush, and I'm going to go ahead and spritz my paint just to get it activated. Look at how that flows. Oh, I love watercolor. So first we're just going to do try to get it as even as we can. And we're going to need quite a bit of water since we're going in with onto the dry. These are things that you can practice in your journals because this is probably the fundamental to learning watercolor. And I suggest working with a small space at first because the bigger you work, the harder the wash is going to be. And you're going to gradually want to work up to that. Okay, so here we go. Wet on dry. Just a flat wash. And you're just going to try and get it as even of a wash as you can. Okay, and now you can go back quickly over it. Another thing I forgot to add was, see, it's still wet. Now you don't want to touch it. Like, just don't touch it. I am going to go ahead and put something under here to kind of give it a little bit of a tilt. Let's see, can you still see that? Yes, I'm going to come in just a bit closer here. There we go. I'll move this down a little bit just so y'all can see. My sleeve didn't mess that up. Okay, so here's our first wash. I wouldn't touch it. You might think, I want to go back in there. I see a little streak or something. No, because if you go back in now, it's going to bloom. Let it dry before you do anything else to it. All right, so here we're going to do a flat wash. Into the wet. So we're going to go ahead and take just a bit of water. We don't want to scrub it in. We just let it glide evenly over and try to get it as evenly distributed as possible. Also too, the bigger the brush you use, the easier it is. So to do a wash, oh, that one's a nice one. All right, so here we go. We're going to come in. We're just going to start at the top and go back. If you need to pick up a little more paint, do that. Now, while it's still super wet, if we want to go quickly back in, we can. But we really just need to let that dry. I am going to grab a Clippy to hold this down. So these come in handy. I don't want to mess up my wash. Okay. I'll just hold it down over here. There we go. There. All right, so now for a gradient. On the gradient, you're going to want to do, as you come down, you're going to use your water to dilute it, the pigment, so less pigment and more water as you come down. So we're going into a wet on dry. Okay. So here, I'm going to try to get it strongest. Now this ultramarine is not usually a very strong color anyway. Alright, that's a little better. Now as we come down, I'll pick up just a bit of water. And if you have a napkin, if you need to dab it on that, and just see, let the paint just, and we're going to dilute it a little bit more, and you're pulling this paint down, but you're letting the water do the work, and you're going to keep coming down. Now I missed a spot there, right there, but I'm not going to touch it because we have this at an angle, and it should continue to bring the paint on down. So we're just going to let that do its thing. We're going to come over here, and this time we're going to do a wet and wet, which means we're going to go ahead, just like up on the flat one, we wet it first, and I had to make sure I was recording. I was like, did I push that play button? Because I don't have like a monitor because I'm using my phone on a tripod. So now I'm just going to make sure that's evenly distributed. I'm not scrubbing, I'm not forcing, I'm just guiding it. We're going to basically do the same thing. As we come down, we're going to use more water, diluted pigment. Look how beautiful that paint goes in there. All right, here we go. We're going to start diluting and letting it flow down. Dilute, let it flow on down. And you can just get it as light as you want to, and then just let it do its thing. I wouldn't go back over it. Especially at the top. All right, so there's our gradients, our flat and our gradients. So I'm going to be back and let this dry and show you the final result. Okay, here we are back, and I'm going to show you how to remove the tape. My advice is to go at it slowly and pull it slightly at an angle. Okay, because this paper is a little bit sensitive to, and this is just washi tape, so it's probably the best tape for journaling, to be honest. Very cheap, but because we're not needing to tape it down like you would say a bigger sheet, then this will do just fine. Okay, I can also go ahead and remove this from underneath there because I like to have it at an angle while it dries. And if you can, let it dry naturally, because then you can really let the paint do its thing with the separation of the pigments, especially like the ultramarine is granulated. That means it has little pigments that separate as it dries. Not all watercolors are. It's good to have a few that are and some that aren't, in my personal opinion. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that little beginner's lesson on washes. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment and I'll do my very best to answer them. And subscribe, because I'm going to have a lot more beginner tutorials coming up in the future. Thank you.